as. So without further ado, let us begin. Here are the focuses of tonight's meeting. Really, it's going to come down to what to do with the Common App, where you can stand out different things you will want to do. But before we dig into that, I do like to start with 5 to 10 minutes around what's going on in college admissions. I wish I could tell you what's going on with the rest of the world, but that is not my focal point tonight. We're just here for admissions. Many of you likely heard in the past year or two that there's a lot of rumors that UMD is no longer a safety school. And for those of you who believe that it's still a safety school, I'm here to debunk that myth. I wish I was wrong, but all of a sudden, if you're applying from the Montgomery County area, Maryland is a target school at best. For many, a reach. Strange to say. Maryland just a few years ago had like a 50-55% admit rate. Maryland had like an average 1250 to 1300 SAT and like a 3.5 unweighted GPA requirement, sometimes even lower depending on the major. And now all of a sudden they are denying students left and right who had 10 APs, kids who have a 3.9 unweighted GPA and impressive accolades. And everyone's asking why. What's wrong with their GPAs? What's wrong with those kids' test scores? And here's what it comes down to, folks. Those things that we know about are just the surface. Every college is going to have different priorities, and they're not going to tell you what they are. It's why this picture is such a good analogy, because no school is going to call up Kate Heald here and go, hey, listen, since you're the career college navigator, former CCIC at BCC, I want you to know what our institutional priorities are this year. If they tell Kate that, all of a sudden her students know, oh, I'm not the sort of kid they're looking for. So why would I end up applying? No, they want to keep their application numbers high, right? To do that, they're not going to share that information. They're going to let you apply, and then they'll decide which students they want. End of the day, what UMD did was they protected their yield rate. A yield rate is the percentage of accepted students who actually attend the university. So to the individual in the chat who just asked, why do we pay taxes for a school that isn't for us? Well, I can't answer that because there's a lot of other things your taxes are going towards in other schools. But the question you have, there are plenty of people who chose to pay those taxes and ignore UMD. People who applied every year and decide not to go to the college in their backyard. Too close to home. I got into UVA or Rice or Northwestern, or I want to go to California where it's beautiful. And UMD looked at the numbers and said, these kids in MCPS, especially the southern half of MCPS, keep saying no to us. So why do we keep saying yes? The definition of insanity. So what did they do? They decided they would take the strongest candidates. They would take the next level down in spring semester, and everyone else they wouldn't accept, because what they would do is they would use other counties from Baltimore County to Anne Arundel County, so on, to fill the rest of the class. Why? Because those are the students who year after year attend. Those students decide that they're willing to go to College Park, that they want the in-state tuition, that they're not going to prioritize another institution over UMD. That was an institutional priority. But no one knew it until they made that decision to do it. So here's my point, folks. We as the consumer, since 2020, when COVID hit, have decided to take a different approach in the application frame. We used to apply to roughly 10 or 11 schools. The average this past cycle was 15. Now, that doesn't seem like a huge difference, 10 to 15, 11 to 15. But when more and more students are applying to 4 more colleges, all of a sudden you have millions more applications going out there. And it will not shock you to learn that those 2 million plus applications on top of what was going out the years before, most of them went to the same 60 schools. Those 60 schools, shocker, folks, they were the top 60 schools on the US News World Rankings list. So we as the consumer decided, well, if schools aren't requiring test scores, even though I don't have the grades or whatnot, I'm going to take my shot at them because they don't need a test score. Why that was the calculus, I don't know. But the moment that test requirement went away, people started throwing applications out there that they never would have before. And for many of them, to the same 50 or 60 schools. That's why when you look at this data, you're going to see that right now, a school like Boston University has a lower admit rate than Ivy's did 20 years ago. BU, this past cycle, their regular decision admit rate was single digits. It was around a 9.6% for Boston University. A very good school, don't get me wrong, but for Boston University. For the Ivies, that was in the 3 to 4% range. You know why? Because more and more people decide to throw an application out there to see what would happen. Some of them because of geopolitical reasons, some of them because they didn't require a test score, some because they just wanted to see what would happen because I have the time to do it. And the Common App makes it that easy to apply to up to 20 schools. That is correct. You can apply to up to 20 schools. Please don't do that to yourself, but you can. So now, all these colleges have much lower admit rates because they have so many more applications to review. Does anyone here know the average amount of time an admissions office tends to spend on a college application?
5 to 10 minutes.
Whoever got on mute, thank you. I heard 5 to 10 minutes. That's a pretty big number, but you're not far off. It's around 7 minutes. Roughly 7 minutes for the application. And we're going to spend an hour tonight just talking about that application. In that hour, an admissions office might review 7 or 8 applications. So, why am I telling you this? Because it's so easy to hyperfixate on one aspect. Is my personal statement exactly what I want to be? Did I ask for the right recommendation? These are all important factors in a holistic review process. But just remember that you could spend hours agonizing over something, letting 10 different people read it. But at the end of the day, the person who's going to read it and whose opinion matters, that admissions officer too, might spend 1 whole minute on your personal statement. So my point, don't overthink that piece. Focus on the greater strength of your application and on the list you have built. It may or may not shock people to know that years ago, some of these colleges that we now find impossible to get into had huge admit rates. Anyone here familiar with USC out in California? It used to be called the University of Spoiled Children. That was what people nicknamed it because as long as you're willing to pay money, you could go and spend 4 years in sunny Los Angeles. Now, they boast closer to a 10% admit rate. Schools like UCLA, single digits, Yale, Harvard, and so on. Northwestern, who used to have a near 50% admit rate back in the years when I was still like in my diapers, right? That was around 3. Well, I was past diapers by 13, don't worry. But now, 7%. You don't need to be in Calculus BC to know that those numbers are not in your favor. So while what we're going to focus on today is what these schools are looking for in the application process, my ask of each of you, look at your list and make sure it's balanced. Make sure you have options where you know you'll get in, schools where you think you're right in line with where you'll get in, and taking your shot at those schools, whether taking that shot means UMD or Yale, is your call. But if you're unfamiliar with it, each of your schools have something called Naviance. Naviance has great scattergrams in there where you can learn more about where students from your school in the last 3 or 4 years have applied and gotten in based on statistics. There's a lot of other useful tools out there. The Fisk guide is a very good one. Another one that I really like is Big Future. And the last one I'm a big fan of is Unigo. Fisk, $26 for a book. And I believe that Miss Heald and other CCICs, or those formerly known as CCICs, have like 15 of these sitting in their office that you can borrow. You don't even have to go buy it. Big Future and Unigo, they're free tools. Big Future allows you to start to develop a list based on size, selectivity, so on. Unigo gives you student reviews. There's a lot of free resources out there, folks. Take advantage of them. Niche is also great. Good call. But my point is, stop focusing on the rankings, because when you do, the list you see in front of you is what your college list looks like. And while 15 years ago, a great student could apply to all those colleges and have a couple kind of come out in their favor, with the number of applications going out there today, that has changed. So I promised I would share a bit about the landscape. Now that I've scared you all and you're like, Jordan, please, can you stop? Let's actually talk about the things you wanted to hear. Like, what is the Common App? What is it used for? The Common Application is a system that has over 1,000 colleges on it where you can apply to up to 20 using an easier resource. So back when I was your age, the Common App had just come to being, and there were only like 150 schools on there. You still have to apply to USC through their school-specific application. Well, nowadays, pretty much every college is on here. The colleges that are not on here that you might be considering, the University of California schools like UCLA, UCI, and so on. MIT has their own application. Georgetown has their own application for now. Next year, they're coming to the Common App, but for current seniors, you still have the Georgetown application. The Cal States like SDSU, San Diego State, or Cal Poly SLO have their own application. And then some randoms like Boise State, University of Hawaii, Manoa, and so on. Otherwise, pretty much every other school you're thinking of is on the Common App. Through that, you'll put in information about your profile, family, education, as well as school-specific information. Well, what are they looking for from you in that application? We call it the magic pill. There are 5 different characteristics that these colleges, especially the more selective ones, are seeking, and there are different places in the application they tend to come out. The first part of the magic pill is passion. Passion's arguably one of the most important factors the more selective a school is, because we need to know that each student's going to have an impact on our campus. And the term passion and impact often coincide. Some students have a sincere love of something to the point where they'll go out there and spend nothing but time doing it. One of my students, former students, that student had a true passion for aeronautics. He always wanted to be a pilot. He lived in Northern Virginia, and the closest place he could kind of do anything, but at the age of 16, was there's a cool simulation place down by Triangle, Virginia. So he'd go down there every Friday. He would take a bus on Fridays after school. Down there, he would have like an early dinner, and he would wait in line for 2 hours to use a simulator to practice his flying. He'd then bus all the way back, get home late, and he started to realize like this just may not be feasible, right? Alongside my sports and other things. So we tried to find a local place, and the only local places only lodge if you're 18 or older. So we contacted the place and asked if there's anything like he could do to kind of like reserve time and so on. And they said, well, actually, we're trying to get a second simulator. It's a lot of money. We haven't gotten there yet, but that once we have that, we'll actually be able to have one that we can reserve while others are for walk-ins only, right? And so we asked them, how much money you're looking for? And when they told him, he started going door to door. He started going around and emailing people. He started asking people if they'd be willing to donate to this cause. He was able to raise $5,000. Now, $5,000 in this case, it was a small number, but it helped them get to where they wanted to be. And then a second simulator was created. And now all of a sudden, he was able to reserve time and do the thing he wanted because he had such a passion, and he took the initiative to pursue it. Initiative allows me to see that you're going to be the sort of person who steps foot on my campus and goes from day one. You're not just going to sit there playing Call of Duty with your friends or wait and see what other people do because you want to fit in. You're going to take the initiative to do what you enjoy because you're an individual. You have individualistic tendencies and needs and interests, like that student who loved aeronautics, like a student I've spoken to who has his own aquarium business because he and his dad loved fish. They decided going on this thing together. And now, while his dad is not in the picture with the aquariums anymore, he now sells all these goods online that he makes from scratch for different aquariums. An individual is what we want. Because an individual is somebody who does the things that they love, takes the initiative to pursue their passions. And all 3 of these characteristics most often come out in your activities, in the things you spend time doing. You absolutely love photography, but all you do is take pictures on your iPhone. What if you start going out there and finding ways to commit that time to your community during the summer through local events? You absolutely love the idea of engineering, but you don't really know what to do with it because your school only has an engineering robotics club. What if you decide that you're going to do a self-taught programming language that'd be useful for engineering? What if instead of doing that, you created like a Raspberry Pi processor to make it easier for your CAD conversions to kind of connect to your robot to do basic functions? Oh, I can do that? Yeah, you can take the initiative to pursue your passions. And by doing so, you show your individualistic tendencies. Those 3 characteristics oftentimes come out in your activity section, in your commitment and time to the things you care about. On the school front, you'll see the love of learning. There's the difference between the students who are in an Apex program at WJ and others where, I'm required to do up to 10 honors or AP courses. It's not easy. It shows us love of learning. There's a difference between that and the kid who goes above that. The kid who takes 13 or 14 APs, not just in the number, but in the fact that that student to get there had to take APs across both the STEM and humanities side. I have plenty of kids who want comp sci or engineering who will do AP physics, who will do AP chem, but they'll shy away from the humanities APs because English is boring or history is too much reading. That student's going to have plenty of options, especially if they do well academically, because those are strong courses. But the kid who takes AP Lang or AP Lit over to AP Physics C shows me a sincere love of learning. They don't back down. It's why the IB diploma oftentimes stands out so much from places like an RM, because you have to take 3 HLs and 3 SLs. And by the way, one of those HLs has to be English. And for many students, they'll also choose math alongside it. Right there, 2 of your HL courses for 2 years are in a STEM and a humanities. I'm not saying you have to do with the IB diploma. You can do AP. But my point is, when you're being compared to other students in MCPS, and that student has 6 IBs, 6 IBs, and maybe before that, even a couple APs, consider you want to be matching something similar to that if you're applying to similar schools, like a Duke, a Northwestern, a Yale, and so on. Even for really selective state schools like a UMD now, or University of Georgia, or UNC, right? UNC is almost impossible to get into, right? Because their out-of-state admit rate is so low. But one of the most important things they look for is your course rigor. Well, plenty of kids with a 4.0, but the student who has a 4.0 unweighted and took 4 APs in junior year and 5 in senior year is showing me that they're not backing down. That's what we're looking for, that course rigor. So for those you look at University of Michigan, UVA, UNC, University of Georgia, University of Florida, UT Austin, right? The big state schools, UCLA, that course rigor is hugely important. The other place that the love of learning comes out is in that letter of recommendation. Letter of recommendation can be very helpful. Now, they're less useful for the big state schools because they don't put as much emphasis on, but for small liberal arts colleges, they matter a lot. You're going to be in classes that might only be 7 people strong. Your junior year, one of my junior courses at Gettysburg, I remember I walked in a little late and I thought that I was in the wrong place and that people were just gathering, hanging out. And I realized, no, that was my seminar class for poli-sci. There were a total of 7 of us. You better believe that you weren't showing up late, you weren't leaving early, and if you missed the class, everyone knew. Some schools care a lot about the letter of recommendation because it shows that love of learning. Now, everything I'm talking about here applies to less selective schools as well. The reason I'm speaking to the highly selective schools is because these characteristics are the ones that you almost have to have in order to be considered. But these same characteristics apply to less selective schools, schools that are still very good, but they may not have the same admit rate. Your George Mason universities, your West Virginia universities, Ohio State, right? These schools still care because they want to know you're going to be a part of their community. So you want to have a strong common application. Make sure you take the time to complete each and every section. The 5th is likability. Now, when you step back, it almost makes no sense. You're telling me about passion, initiative, all these things I need to do to impress them, and likability. Why does likability fit in here? Because whether you're a 2.4 student or a 4.0 valedictorian, I need to know that people on my campus will want to spend time with you. That you're someone that I'm going to enjoy spending time with, not someone who I'm going to go the long way around the dorm to not see because you're so full of yourself, or because you think you're better than everyone else, or because you don't play nicely with the other kids. I need to know that you're going to be someone who networks within my campus from an academic standpoint, from a social standpoint, somebody who people are drawn to. And that almost always comes out in the personal statement, the big 650-word essay you'll be writing to your colleges, not school specific, you specific. So I'm going to pause for a moment. Before I actually start showing you portions of the common application, I want to address any questions. So as questions are coming in, I'm going to revisit something that was asked. Can you speak to how to make your Common App strong if you're an average student applying to schools that have higher acceptance rates? Absolutely. While we're going to dig into the actual application here shortly, there's a couple important things to remember. Number one, each college is going to have their own specific section of questions, not just essays, but like, how did you hear about us? How did you learn? It's important that you be able to say why you're interested in the school, from the academics to the location and so on, because when they ask you, why do you want to attend this institution? It has to be more than your number 33 on the rankings, or because my friend's brother goes there. So, especially if you're a student who is an average student, make sure they see why you'd be a great fit there. Because we're not just focused on the academics, we're focused on you as a human being, you as an individual. And that's where your personal statement will come into play. Teach me about why you're someone I couldn't do without on my campus, why you'd be a good addition. An average student can write a great essay and have it really help them stand out to an admissions office in that likability format. How does the recommendation work, and do I add it to my Common App when sending essays? So if you are a current senior, you're likely going to hear from your college career navigator sometime soon about this, but you need to go into Naviance and you need to connect your Naviance to Common App. Once you've done that, you can add your letters of rec in through Naviance, and that way your letters will go straight through Naviance to the common application. So let me, I'm going to get more to letters of rec shortly, but you're going to have to do a couple steps. But once you've done those steps, you'll be able to have them flow right through. It's a good question. For now, seniors, if you haven't already, make sure to check in with the teachers you asked at the end of last year to make sure they're good to go with your letters, that they don't need a brag sheet or that they know what your earliest deadline is. Don't wait until October 30th to realize, I haven't talked to Mr. Smith. Go now. Hi, Mr. Smith. Just want to let you know I'm applying to a number of schools. My earliest deadline is November 1st for UMD's early action. Do you need anything from me for your letter of rec? If not, all good. If yes, tell me so that you can get it done by November 1st. Stop by, say hi, make the ask. Any other questions?
Hi, I have a question.
Yeah.
So November, so what is October 3rd? Why is October 30th a special day? October 30th is what day?
October 30th is what day?
When is October 30th is what? Is it the deadline?
Got it. So no, October 30th is not a deadline. October 30th is before a deadline. If you're asking that question, I'm going to encourage you to go into the common application and start adding your schools and looking at your deadlines. Schools will have different deadlines, early action, regular decision. We're not really talking a lot about that today. That's a separate topic, but some schools have an October 15 deadline. Most schools have a November 1 early action deadline and a January 1 to 3 regular decision deadline. I used October 30th as a reference point because if you don't have your letter even asked for and it's 2 days until a deadline of November 1, your teacher's not going to have enough time to get it done. So I was using that as a reference point as don't wait till 48 hours before the deadline to follow up with your teacher. Ask now. To the person who asked about also do you apply to a scholarship separately? Depends. Some colleges will offer you merit-based aid based on your background academically. Some in the application will show you can apply for it here, like Washington University, St. Louis, and Vanderbilt and Boston University had them built in. Others, they don't offer you scholarships unless it's for merit purposes. So for scholarships, I'd look at sites like cappex.com, CAPPEX. I'd look at Scholarship Owl. I'd use FastWeb, Raise.me. Those are all good sites where you can apply for separate scholarships. But for school-specific scholarships, those will be awarded on a merit basis. I have time for two more questions. We're going to move on. What if you're a new student as a senior? Should you still try getting the letter? Well, if you're a new student at WJ, and you came from RM, let's say, you'd want to get your letters from 11th grade teachers, ideally. So I would ask from teachers from your previous high school. Do current early college students go about applying to schools the same way? Yes. How helpful is it taking community college or doing internships? So folks, this is where we start getting to questions that I can't answer. Without knowing kind of the background, I can't really answer whether or not it's helpful for you, right? So I'm going to ask if you're going to ask questions, try and be a bit more specific there. Community college courses look good, but some students will decide to take community college courses instead of AP Lang. Take the AP or IB. If then in senior year, you've gone beyond it and now you have to go take Psych 211 at MoCo, go for it. But don't go with MoCo because it's easier than the AP course. All right. I see a lot of questions coming in. I figured this would happen. I do need to keep us moving forward. I will try and revisit questions when I can here. In the common application, once you've created your account, you're going to see that there's information about the profile, family, education, testing, activity, and writing section. There's also a course and grades tab that some colleges require. Those 6 or 7 tabs are required by every college. Point being, those aren't school specific, they are you specific. The profile and family information, I'm not going to walk through today. That's basic information about you that you will fill out. The first place I want to walk you through, is the education tab. Under the education tab, you're going to be asked some questions you may not know the answer to. So one of the questions is about your graduating class size. Kate, what's the approximate graduating class size this year for BCC? Do you know?
Sorry, I had to unmute. I think it's about 560. Brett, is that correct? I think it's about 560.
Fair. Let's call it 560 for the purpose of this. Well, some schools will be 800, some will be 650. You don't know, and that's okay. But that's why starting this process now makes sense. You have time to go speak to your school counselor. You have time to email them. You have time to stop by your CCN's office to ask them questions. Going back to the other question, why is October 30th an important day? Any date that's too close to a deadline means that you're rushing. Do not be rushing through the application process. Every one of my students that I work with is already done with their common application, their personal statement, onto their essays. Does that mean you're behind? No. But what it does mean is that you have plenty you can be doing now that you're back in school, and you should not wait until the last minute. You'll also see here that it asks about class ranking. Ignore that. MCPS doesn't do class ranking, so you'll click none. And then under GPA scale reporting and cumulative GPA, you'll put in your weighted or unweighted 9th through 11th grade GPA, your decision, and your GPA scale reporting will be 4 regardless. Everyone thinks that because you put a weighted GPA in that it's on a 5 scale. It's still on a 4 scale. Weighted means that it goes above 4. Unweighted means that it goes up to 4. So regardless, your GPA scale is 4. I tend to recommend listing your weighted if you have a 4, 5, or higher, unweighted otherwise. Everyone overthinks it? Don't. College is going to recalculate your GPA regardless. The next section down asks you about current or most recent year courses. That is where you'll list your current senior year course schedule. You'll list out your full year, your semester courses, everything. Let's say that you list them out, and then all of a sudden after you apply to UMD, you find out that second semester, that sociology course you signed up for isn't available, and so now you have Intro to Statistics. Okay. You email UMD and you let them know, hi, my name is Jane Smith. I'm a rising senior from WJ. I recently applied to UMD, but I had a course change for second semester. I just wanted to update you. It's okay to have changes. They happen all the time. So don't hold off because you don't know. Submit your application when you're ready after you've reviewed it. And if you need to update schools, you can always send them an email. You'll also see in this section that they ask you for honors. Honors can be up to 5 different honors, and they should be academically oriented. So your MVP for lacrosse doesn't count here. I'm sorry. What can go here is that engineering award that you won with the robotics team. You could put in here that MUN Outstanding Delegate. You could put in World Scholars Cup, as I mentioned here, or a creative writing award from something you won. You could put in National Honor Society and so on. And for the record, some students don't have honors, even an honor roll. And you know what? That's okay. You don't have to fill it out if you don't have anything. If you do, you include up to 5. If not, you click no and you move on to the next section, which is future plans. And under future plans, you're going to be asked, what do you want to do when you grow up? And your head's going to start spinning because you're 17 and you don't even know where you want to go to college yet. And now you're being asked what you're going to do when you're as old as the guy talking to you right now. Don't overthink this section. This is for you to give them a sense of what you're thinking you might want to be right now. My only recommendation here is that you don't put undecided. If you're thinking you want to be a teacher, put teacher. You think you like the idea of business, put business. You think you want to be a doctor, put doctor. It's not like 2 years into college they're going to come knock on your door and go, Lindsay, we see here that you want to be a doctor, but you're currently an English major. We're going to have to ask you to leave the premises, right? No. What does 17-year-old you think you want? Simple as that. Now we're going to talk about a section I don't like to talk about because of the stress it causes, but it is necessary. We're going to start with APs and IBs, and then we'll step back to the other exams. You should be listing for APs any 4s and 5s you received in 9th, 10th, and 11th grade, as well as all the APs you're planning to take in 12th grade. That's correct. If you're taking AP Stats this year, put May 2026, put statistics, leave the score blank. That's okay. But list taken and planned. IB is the exact same way. The only difference is in the score. You always list 6s and 7s. I'm open to listing 5s for IBs and 3s for APs if students are proud. Just know that most colleges won't accept that as a passing score to get credit. They won't look down on it necessarily, but they will not use it as far as taking into consideration for credit on their campus. Whereas 4s and 5s for APs, they do. 6s and 7s for IBs, they do. On the SAT and ACT front, we're going to be quick. Easy. If a school does not require it, you are only sending it if you're at the 50th percentile or higher. You're not sure what that 50th percentile is? Google's a good friend. University of Maryland, average SAT score. You're within 10 to 20 points of it, go for it. You're 80 points below their average, don't submit it. This is one of those things where I can tell you it hurts you to submit a score that is below the average. Until a school is test required, you only submit if you're in the 50th percentile or higher. So you'll see on here that I have SAT, ACT, all those listed. Let's say that you're applying to University Ohio State, who requires test scores, and you need to have your SAT in there, you'll include it. Then you go to submit to UMD, but you're not sending your test score to UMD. Just click this X, it will remove the test score. You can add it back in later if you want, but that's all you have to do to remove it should you be applying to a school where you don't want to be sent after sending it to another school. Okay? I'm not going to spend much more time here because there's a lot of stress around testing. It's its own conversation, but I wanted to show you this section. Okay? Before we touch on activities, I'm going to try and answer a couple more questions. I see there's about 32 that have come in here, so I'm going to kind of go through a few of them that I think make sense to go through. We'll come back to the others. Does it help to get a letter? Oh, so there's a couple that we're going to cover here. What exactly are casual short answer questions for? Should I answer? Okay. That's about the UMD questions. We'll come back to that. To those of you asking for the scholarship websites, yes, I will add those in once I have time to type. The class rank, does the class rank disadvantage MCPS students' admission decision? No. If your school does not rank, doesn't hurt. Now, what was hurting MCPS students was the fact that more students over the past 4 years have graduated 4.0s than ever before. It's why MCPS just made the decision that they did to shift the grading scale. That way, a kid who got a B quarter one and A quarter two doesn't just get an A in semester one like a kid who had A's both quarters would. So what they are doing is they're making it so that it's going to be harder to get a 4.0 so that those kids who did stand out can do so. But not having rank does not hurt you at all. Is listing 4 for very competitive colleges okay? Could it hurt? I heard different opinions. Here's the truth for very competitive colleges. They'll have a wall of 5s or a wall of 7s for IBs. You should list a 4 because it's passing. And if you don't have it, they'll wonder why it's not there. But I will tell you that the most selective colleges, the students that they tend to take will have a bunch of 5s, maybe a 4 in there. I would still list it because it is a good score, but that is the nature of the uber selected beast. How do you think about the career question when applying to constrained majors? Don't consider, like, your major might be, you might decide that you want to be an English major, but you want to be a doctor. That's okay. They're not looking at that from the perspective of compare it to your major. They just want to know what you think you want to be when you grow up. Because remember, you might switch your major 3 or 4 times. So if you're thinking that your major is going to be something along the lines of nursing, you don't have to choose nurse here. Maybe you choose lawyer. Doesn't have a negative impact at all. What if your total APs are more than 15? Good. Yeah, you're kind of in that standard strong category for the uber selectives. Now, do you have all A's? Have you had all 5s with the 4 in there? I don't know, but that is a good number. Well done. How do you put in college credits earned through Project Lead the Way? That's looks like that has already been covered. This shared when you choose your college. Hopefully they'll accept the credit, but this varies from school to school. Thank you for answering that. Do colleges know about the grade change? How does a 4.0 in MCPS compare to other counties? Colleges do know how it is currently done. It's in your school report. It's why your schools are changing it because they know why there's more 4.0s than normal. It's why they're so focused on the course rigor because they know that the grades right now aren't necessarily indicative of the same thing. It's why the course rigor has mattered for so long in MCPS. Okay, I think we're caught up. I see some questions that we're going to address here about activities in just a moment, so I'm going to move on here. Some of you ask, can you show us what good activities look like? Your wish is my command. In front of you, you're going to see different examples. The top one here about editor-in-chief, well, this is a pretty highly sought-after role for anyone who's interested in writing a newspaper. And in each activity, you're given the opportunity to give 150 character, not word, character description. So when you're given 150 characters and all you do is spend 30 characters saying you were responsible for budget and deadlines, you're not really giving me a whole lot about what you did here. That is an example of a very bad activity description. The one below is a very good activity description. We learned from the student that he is the founder and president of the Classic Rock Appreciation Club. Now, before we keep going, it's very easy for people to say, oh, who cares? That's not academic. Why would that impress me? You know why it impresses me? because I see the impact this student made. Go back to those things that we talked about. He shows his individuality through the initiative he took to pursue his passion and share it with others. Because he started it after his brother introduced him to The Clash. Personally, I'm a Ramones guy, but The Clash are still very good. 40 students meeting weekly to discuss favorite bands and attend 3 local concerts a year. So now I know that this kid brought 40 different people together to talk about their favorite music, and they go out beyond the school borders together to enjoy the concerts. That's a huge impact. That is precisely what I want from activities. And I'm going to run through a couple more examples here. Who here knew that you could list a family responsibility as an activity? Many people don't know that. They think of activities as clubs, organizations, sports. This is an activity. This student for 12 hours a week has to watch their younger sibling. Giving me that detail not only helps me to understand why you may not have other activities, but lets me see the impact you've had on an important part of your community, your family, right? Whereas the second example, I always see it in there, someone who quits a job or who quits a club or something in 9th grade and decides they want to list it. Why? You stopped it after 9th grade. Why do I care about it? This was 3 years ago. In this case, he did it for 3 hours for 1 week. I know why. Mom told you if you didn't do it, your Xbox was going flying out the window. So you did as you were told, like a good student, but that's not something I care about for my campus. And another good example here, this top one is a really good example of just a student who decided to do something because they were interested in it. This kid built a Raspberry Pi processor, and he was doing it watching documentaries, using solar power engines, and so on. And by the way, he was only starting to build it when he applied. He hadn't even done it yet. He was telling them like what he'd done to get there. But it still shows me your interest, your passion, your initiative, what you like to do with your time. And it was self-study. It wasn't like it was some activity, it was a hobby. Whereas the second student here, clearly a very accomplished volleyball player, but unless you're a recruited athlete, in which case this would be fine, but most of us aren't, why are you telling about all the accolades and awards your team won? You're not coming here to play volleyball. Tell me about who you are within this team. Sports is one of the hardest ones because people just tell me like what football is, what volleyball is. I don't care about what volleyball is. I care about why you did it. I care about why you enjoy golf. I care about why you decided to do fencing, right? So, end of the day, the goal with activities is you get to list up to 10 of them on a common application. Part-time job, volunteering, internships, hobbies, clubs, organizations, sports, family responsibilities. There's so many of them. Your musical instrument. So if I don't see many activities, the fewer I see, the harder it is for me to see who you'll be on my campus. Activities are important. So for the person who just asked, is it bad if I've only been in one club? Not if you have other activities to boast, like a couple of hobbies you have and a sports team, like a club team, and the volunteering you do on a weekly basis at the old folks home that grandma lives at, and other things. But if all you have are 2 or 3 activities, it's going to be very difficult for me to see who you will be on my campus. Activities are important. How should I list activity if it varies a lot, like 2 hours a week, except for 20 hours on 1 week? Try and advertise it, right? If it's usually 2 hours and 1 week it's 20, maybe you list it as 3 or 4 hours. Colleges aren't necessarily looking to go, that wasn't enough time. Just want to get a sense of kind of on a weekly basis what your time commitment is. So for some students who like, I have a creative writer who he has some weeks where he spends 20 hours working on a piece and then he has a month where he doesn't do anything. We just divided it. We multiplied the number he did, divided it by 52, and that's what we put in. And it was 2 hours. That's okay. Somebody asked a very good question. Couldn't you just make these up? It's a heck of a question because in all sincerity, could you? Sure. But here's the truth of it. It's sometimes easier to tell when someone's making it up because they're a lot less honest with the time, with what they did and so on. I can also look and see that there's probably other kids from your school who apply to my school. And because a lot of time when you're making things up, you're doing it for prestige. And I can look and go, this person said they're president of this club, but this person said they're president of this club. And then I kind of look at the background and the description. I see who really it is. And all of a sudden you've shot yourself in the foot. I would not make it up. But in theory, you could. If I have more than 10 activities, it's about to have 3 or 4 volunteering, or should I place 1 athletics? Don't know your background. I can tell you I want it to be a narrative. Show me who you'll be on my campus. If 3 or 4 of them are volunteering and show your true commitment to your community, I don't mind that. You can also include some of them elsewhere. We'll talk more about that later. Are you able to average the time spent? Oh, that was you asked, Kate. Okay. So we're going to continue forward. Again, I will come back to questions. The personal statement. Now, this is something that I'm hoping a lot of you were able to attend over the summer when I came in June to do this at your schools. I do an entire hour-long seminar just on this topic. So understand I will not be able to answer all your questions, but I will do my best to give you a sense of what you need to do here. You get 650 words to teach you about who you are as an individual in a way I don't yet know. All these activities, all the information in your education tab, profile, family, testing, I've seen all that. I've seen your transcript. I now, before I get to the personal statement, already know if you're a good addition to my campus academically. I already know if you're a good addition socially because of your activities. I'm no longer asking, are you a qualified candidate? I'm asking that likability question we talked about so long ago. Are you someone I would want as my freshman year roommate? So when students decide to talk about their love of something along the lines of football and how it taught them the importance of helping others or working as a team, okay, but how many other people can tell that story? So here's what matters here. Number one, being open and honest. Don't try to impress the admissions officer. Number two, details. Use the football player as an example. Well, if you tell me that you're a kicker, but actually you're a kicker who's left-footed and how much harder that is. And actually you every single game that you've kicked in, your dad has been there supporting you in the stands because when you were younger, you actually had a terrible foot injury and you didn't even know if you were going to walk again. So he's always taking videos, right? Little details like that you're building in. Well, now no one else gets to tell the same story you do. So even if it's a topic that others can use, it's your story. Own it with detail. Number three, do your best not to be repetitive. It's why I don't like football or sports much in these, because I already know about your sports. Now, if you're going to talk about them here, I'd like you to do it in a way that teaches me something new about you. Don't just repeat that you're captain of the football team thinking that I didn't see it before. Teach me about who you've become through it. Give me new detail. And number four, make sure it sounds like you. Don't chat GPT this. Don't hand it over to your mom or dad. Ask them to update the verbiage so that it sounds more impressive, because admissions officers tend to be about 25 to 27 years old. They're closer to your age than you think. And when they read an essay and they question if this was written by someone else or if it was written by ChatGPT, you've already lost the battle. Now, I'm going to tell you my favorite example of an essay. Kate, you've heard this 1,000 times. You can snooze for a minute. It's about a girl who couldn't stop losing. When she was 6, she lost a button up her nose. She started screaming like any 6-year-old would, and her mom came running into the room looking for it. She couldn't find anything. For all she knew, it was still stuck up there. But it wouldn't be the last thing she lost. She then goes on to talk about how, as she got into high school, she started trying out for things. First started with student body president for freshmen, lost, got like 2 votes of the 300. But she rattled off another inspired speech for another organization, and she lost that one too. But she didn't know how good she was at losing until the end of sophomore year, when she ran for president, vice president, treasurer, and secretary of National Honor Society. She lost all 4 elections in the span of 26 minutes. She wrote in the very next sentence, "Who could boast this kind of speed and precision? I'd finally mastered the art of losing." But that was only 300 of the 650 words. She goes on from there to talk about what she did with that time. She became a lector at her church. She worked with a young lady at Best Buddies over summer who had spina bifida and made sure she had a great summer. She then even went and raced on her school spirit squad for points. She went to a school that had 4 different houses, kind of like Hogwarts. And even though at this school, all these people were the same ones who said they didn't want to be president here, president there, she ran as hard as she could and competed as hard as she could so they could win the cup. She rounded the rest out with the idea of, I can't wait for college. I can't wait to go out there and try something new. Because at this point, what do I have to lose? She owned it with detail. She didn't try to impress the admissions officer. She just opened up with who she is. While we knew about Best Buddies and Spirit Squad from her activities, we didn't know this side of her. So even though she repeated something, she gives a new side of who she is. And she wrote it in a really likable, conversive format that made it easy to connect with her. So here's my point, folks. Seniors on this call, if you're on this call and you have not yet started your personal statement, or your personal statement sort of breaks these cardinal rules, you still have time, but now is a good time to get back underway or to start it. Is it better if you use every word? Not necessarily. I wouldn't write a 500-word essay, but I've seen some very good ones that are 620 words. No reason to add fluff in there, but let's be honest, Most of these essays should go to 650 because there's always somewhere more you can insert detail that helps me to learn about you. Right below the essay is a section that says additional information. Somebody asked before, let's say I have 14 activities. Well, and I can only list 10. Where can I list the rest? Or like, what can I do? In theory, you can list the other 4 in the additional information section. There is room to give a bit more detail should you wish. Now, here is my take. You should only use the additional information section if I need to know this information. If it's important for me to see who you'll be on my campus or something that happened in your past. Or like, let's say you're an MUN, like you see here, you have 20 different awards. You want to show me just how involved you've been. Some people will come here to tell me about how 9th grade was hard because it was a new school and I didn't really make any friends. So I got a few bad grades. Things happen. But if you look to the left, imagine that your application being read right after someone whose house was lost in the wildfires in LA. And they had to talk about that here. Imagine if somebody had to talk about how they had the sudden loss of a family member due to COVID and how their life changed significantly and how they had to take on all these family responsibilities. And you're talking about how, because I couldn't make friends, 9th grade was hard. Consider the greater picture. You should really only use this section if there truly is information they need to know about you. So some examples include extra awards, a couple extra activities that need to be mentioned. I had a student who had a bad concussion, was out of school for 3 months. So naturally his grades were terrible that semester. We use this to help explain. I have seen students talk about their mental health here, but my suggestion is only talk about your mental health here if you could show me how you've kind of come over the other side of it. If you're still in the throes of it, I'm thinking of you, my best to you, but don't tell me that there's a problem that you haven't yet resolved. You're only going to make me worry more about whether or not you're going to be okay on my campus away from home. Otherwise, you click no to the additional information and you move on. For those you asked about recommendation letters, we're going to cover them now. On the Common App, there's a tab that says My Colleges on the left-hand side. For each college, you'll see something that says Recommenders in FERPA. When you click on that, you'll release authorization. Once you've gone through that, you'll see the options to either waive your right or I do not waive my right. Students, you should always select I waive my right to review my recommendation, stating I do not need to read my recommendation before I submit. I know we may want to. I know we may be curious. When you click I do not waive my right, what you tell them is I'm worried my teacher's going to say something bad. Do not do that. Do not wave the big red flag. Do not let your curiosity get the best of you. Waive your rights. Once you do, you'll see that your school is using Naviance for transcripts and teacher recs. Please contact your counselor directly and they'll provide instructions specific to your school regarding these documents. Once you've done this, your school will tell you, but you can also just go to Naviance and connect the accounts. You'll click colleges I'm applying to. In the top right, you'll see a button that says match accounts. It's a big red button. You'll match accounts and then they'll be in there. If your college has already been added to the Common App, you'll see they'll show right there and you'll make sure the deadlines are correct. If it's regular decision and you mean have it as early action, you'll edit it and change it. Go through that list. Then go back up to the top under colleges and click letters of recommendation and add your requests in for recs. From there, you should be good to go. Will Common App tell you if your college takes recs or not? Yes, it will. So that is how you'll ask for recs. The only thing that you need to keep in mind is if you're asking for an extra recommendation, other rec, which some colleges allow, coach, mentor, former employer, that you'll have to manually add in. That does not go through Naviance. And that's under this counselor section. It says teacher. Under teacher, if a college accepts other, then you can add them in there. Now, some colleges will have alumni interviews or video portfolios. All that will happen after you apply. I'm just letting you know that that's the sort of stuff you will see in your portal. The portal is sort of the last thing I want to talk about today before I go through the number of questions. You've completed your common application. You're submitting your application to University of Pittsburgh because it's rolling admissions. Wink, wink. If you're applying to University of Pittsburgh, submit it by the end of September for the rolling admissions. Thank you, Lindsay. You get it. Yes, rolling admissions means as you apply, they begin review. Do it. Do it. Okay, I'm done. My point is, once you've submitted, you will receive an email within 2 to 3 days asking or giving you access to a portal. The Pitt portal, the Nittany Lions Penn State portal, the UMD Terrapins portal. Log in. Once you've logged in, number one, save that information, not just in your Google Docs, not just in like your Google Cloud, put it in a Google Doc. the URL, the username, the password. That way, if something happens, you reset your computer, everything goes away, you can still access it. Why? Because the portals are where colleges will tell you what they're missing. So the question was just asked, what if you don't have the recs yet? As long as Naviance is connected, you can submit. Because even if the recs aren't in yet, once they're done, they'll flow through Naviance, through ComNap, right into Maryland, right into Penn State, right into each school. You need to make sure that Naviance is connected and that your recs are requested through Naviance, but then you can submit and the supporting documents will follow. Transcript, recommendations, and so on. I would not submit until, but you want to make sure you do that. So that in mind, there are going to be a lot of questions. The last year, there was one more thing I did want to cover, that My Colleges tab. Early action means that you can apply early. You're not bound, but if you apply early, you can go ahead and find out early. Great. Try and hit early action wherever you can. Early decision is binding. You can select one ED school if you choose, and if you get in, you have to go. So people talk about doing that for Northwestern, for Duke, and so on, because it makes sure you can get in. Well, it doesn't make sure. It gives you a slightly better chance, but everyone's applying ED to those schools. And even if you get in, just know you will have to pay the full amount. So if you're sitting here being like, I'm not paying $90,000 for college, don't go ED there. Some of you are asking about scholarships. That's cute. Duke doesn't offer merit aid. Why would they? They'll give some aid to athletes if need be. If they have a student who shows that they need financial aid, they'll do that. But merit aid at the highly selectives, don't expect it. So make sure you're comfortable with that number. You also see questions along the lines of what are you interested in for major? What school are you applying to? My point is each college is different here. And let's say you're applying to 15 colleges, all in the Common App. You might think, oh, it's easier because it's all in the Common App. It's slightly easier. They all live in one place, but each of them has their own questions. Some of them have their own essays. Take your time and move through it. Okay. So this in mind, we have a number of questions. I'm going to throw this up before I start answering questions. CollegeWise creates a free guide to the Common App. It's about 75 pages. It's super useful. If you want, email me. I will send you the link so that you can access it. I also sent that link to Miss Heald a day or two ago. She can share that out if she's so inclined. The point is, if you want the slides, you want the link to the Common App guide, email me. My email's right there. Now, let me start running through some questions. We got some scrolling to do here, team. I see that you guys have been busy. Mr. DeMunter, Kate, thank you for helping here. How should I list? Nope, we answered that. Can you show a good example of a sport team description in contrast to a bad one? I can't show one. I don't have one on here, but a good example would be something along the lines of putting taught me patience. Putting taught me patience. My 9-iron taught me form. Golf's been really good for my mental health, but also for teaching me how important it is to work hard to get what you want, right? It's a little bit more about you. It's only 150 characters, but just tell me I got CIF #1 this. I don't learn about who you are at your core. Just little things like that to teach me about you. How do you put in hours for, say, a play rehearsal where it's like 40 hours a week for a couple weeks, but less before that? What we've already talked about, amortize it. If for a month it's like 30 to 40 hours a week and the rest of the time it's 2 hours, maybe listen to like 7, 8. Colleges are going to look and go make sure that you didn't put in, like, for your 10 activities, 100 hours a week. They'll be like, no, that can't be real. They just want to get a sense of, like, is this a big commitment? Is it a small commitment? That's what they're looking for here. They're not spending a whole lot of time there. And by the way, for sports, for plays, it's not just about the time you're at rehearsal. It's about the time spent in between. For some sports, you have to, like for crew, you have to go to and from the waterfront, right? That's time spent in the activity. Don't sell yourself short. Any advice on how to maximize the impact of a part-time job at a restaurant, 10 hours a week for more than a year? Yeah. What did it teach you? Time management, maturity, working for a terrible boss? You tell me. But I like to see part-time jobs because it shows me that you can manage something alongside school, that you can handle something that, like, adults do. I love a part-time job. That's it. Those. So are you saying you could submit without the letter and they will come through as they look through your app? Yes, but again, just to make it clear, you can submit as long as you've invited that rec through Naviance and you've connected Naviance to your Common App. So if you have not done those, hold off on submission. If you have done those, you can begin submitting. I'm part of a biotech program and research program at my school. Where do you think would be the best to put those in the application? Well, if you're part of it through your school, in theory, that's something that's likely being outlined already by your counselor in your counselor recommendation. That's something that you'd want to make sure they're talking about, because it's not necessarily an activity. It's something that you're a part of within your already academic side of things. In theory, you could list it as an activity, but that's something I'd be asking my counselor to say in my counselor recommendation. Should you do early action for highly competitive schools, including Ivy League schools? Well, that's different. Ivy Leagues have restrictive early action. That means that you can't go early decision anywhere, and you can't go early action to private schools. So let's say that your list is Yale, Ohio State, Maryland, and Case Western, and you go restrictive early action to Yale. You can still go early action to your public schools, Ohio State and to Maryland, but any private school, USC, MIT, Georgetown, who have EA, you'd have to go regular decision. Regular decision can impact your chance of getting in and of getting merit aid. So if you're a really strong candidate, like you have a 1590 SAT, 15 AP, straight A's, amazing activities, you're in line with what a Yale or a highly selective is looking for, yeah, go REA. Otherwise, I wouldn't impact my other EA applications for it. Because even the Ivies, like they use restrictive early action to take their strongest candidates, and then they defer, deny everyone else. If both recs are requested as general by mistake, can you choose which one is submitted if college only needs one? If you've already added in as general, what I'd do is I would delete them, and then I would add them again. Because now when you add them, you should be able to add in with the school specific. Because you might have done it like a couple weeks ago before it was available for you to actually add in for the schools. Because otherwise, if you just do general, your counselor is going to choose which goes where. You can let them do that, but if you want it to be for something specific, I would cancel and then redo it for specific. But as Kate said, your CCN at your school, depending, may have a better approach. How can we strengthen the level of learning if you're only doing one AP? I also, because I have an IP, so I've stuck on level of honors. That's okay. Love of learning is most important with the uber selective schools. And quite frankly, I found that students who have IEPs don't often excel at a school that has a 5% admit rate. What I will tell you is that I would probably mention your IEP in your additional information to let colleges know that you have an IEP, that you've been working through it, how you've grown from it, but just to kind of highlight why you may have a less rigorous course schedule, unless of course you don't want to. But I mean, listen, if you're saying, well, how do I point this out? Because I'm applying to Duke, Northwestern, so on. To them, it won't matter because they will have students who have 15, 16 APs, right? So if you've been saying with on level and honors, because that's what you need, and you're pursuing colleges where you're going to have access to people who are going to help you along your way in college, it's not a concern. If you feel you are not as strong as other kids to Hopkins, do you still apply for ED? If it's your number one school, you can. But here's the hard part. You don't know who else from your school, your district's going early decision. You don't know how you match up to those candidates, and you never are going to find out that information. You shouldn't base it off of that. What you should base it off of is whether or not it's your number one school. Now, let's say you have like a 3.7 GPA, you're going test optional, and you have like 5 APs. You can go ED to Hopkins, but like this is where I want you to consider your Naviance. Where does your background academically and test score wise line you up for your best ED chances? Is it Hopkins or is it a Lehigh or a Lafayette, right? Don't go ED to Hopkins just because it gives you the best chance, because for some students, it's still not a great chance, right? Consider going ED to a place where you're slightly below the mark. How do you list being a teacher aide for one period? That's been answered. Thank you. Can you write your college essay about failures, skills you're still working on developing, like how I failed to finish a project and right now working my way back up to it? You could, but make sure that it kind of has a point to it other than I don't see things through, right? You got to make sure that I'm learning about you as we go. So failures aren't necessarily a bad thing to talk about, but how failures have become successes, I like that. All right, I see we're running out of time, so I'm going to answer a couple more here, and then I'll let you go. Oh, one thing I promised, let me throw these in the chat. I just threw in the 3 sites that I found a lot of students have used and found success with. They're at the bottom. CapEx, Raise.me, and FastWeb, all good for privatized scholarships. The last thing I'll say on that front, I should assume two questions after I say this last thing on that front. If you're considering merit aid, if you're considering the price of college, stop talking about the Ivies. Stop talking about Duke and Northwestern and so on. They're not schools that give merit aid. If you think that you're going to get financial aid from them, sure, fill out the FAFSA and the CSS profile. Those will be open October 1st. You can fill those out. You can click yes on financial aid and go from there, right? But those are the schools that are going to cost full price if you get in. Focus on the schools that really want you and who will really need you. Those are the ones who will give you money. Should a student ED at Legacy Ivy School? It depends. If you're a good candidate, yeah. If you're 3.2, no. But if you're a good candidate, Legacy is where ED works. That works the best. Okay, let's do one more question here. Would a 504 plan or for ASD or ADHD diagnosis be something to mention in additional information? It absolutely can. Again, I only tend to recommend adding that information in if you can point to 9th and 10th grade were tough. I had a B average because I really was struggling with time management. Then I found out that I had ADHD. I started taking meds. I started focusing on time management. I really put a lot more effort in to figure out what I need to be successful. I've turned things around. And now that I understand kind of what I have, I'm working hard and have great grades. If you have a 504, but your grades aren't changing, why call attention to it? Because if anything, now you're telling me you know what's going on and you're not doing anything about it. So only talk about it if there's good reason to. So to the question, why complete FAFSA if there's no way you qualify? The answer is because you never know. I know it's a silly answer, but it's because colleges may see that and go, this is a way to that student's heart. Here's the truth. Ivies, I tell students there's no reason if you're not going to qualify, because at the end of it, they could theoretically look at it and say, you know what? We have this student, while they're need blind, when they get to the last 5% of the class, they're not really need blind, right? So for the uber selectives, if you know you're not going to qualify, then I just say no. But let's say that on your list you have a school like Dickinson College or Gettysburg College and you're a really strong candidate, say yes. Because they were going to offer you 20,000. Maybe they decide to offer you 25,000 in merit because they see that money's something you care about. So to me, it's worth spending a few hours doing. There's no harm in it necessarily. Okay, last question. Can your college essay be about what happened when you were much younger? In theory, it can be, but it should be mostly focused on who you are now. So it could start off with who you were when you were 7, but I really want to learn about who you are at 17. Kate, I've run over. I apologize. Anything else you want to add in before